Welcome guys to episode 1 of a multi-part series in which we will explore the development techniques of a Microsoft Flight Simulator aircraft. So in this tutorial series, my plan is to cover everything. So everything from project creation all the way up to Blender techniques, animation coding, XML scripting, getting into the aircraft editor with your CFGs and your FLT files, as well as delving all the way down to panels, interior view, all the way up to sounds. So we will start this process today on episode 1 is going to be project management. Now project management is a huge part of the development process, and unfortunately, they have not made the SDK easy for us to get our first aircraft into the game. So I will be going through the whole process and explain to you how we're going to basically take an example project which Microsoft already has and insert our aircraft into that project. And that's basically how you're going to start every project. So let's go ahead and jump into what our plans are. So we're going to take this airplane V2 3D model. It's a free download that you can find on Free3D, and I'll provide that link in the description if you would like to follow along with this tutorial. I really went back and forth on how I was going to make this tutorial because I wanted to start my own project, maybe do something new and show direction as I go, but I understand that the community, learns by following. And so I've decided to change the whole thing so that you may learn by following. So we're going to take this free little aircraft that is extremely simple, and we're going to turn this little guy into something that is fun to play in Flight Simulator. So after we've downloaded that model, let's start creating our project for the first time. So if you haven't done so already, go to Options, General, Developers, and make sure you have Developer Mode turned on. Once you have it turned on, you'll have this nice little black bar at the top that has some tools. And the first thing you want to do is go over to Help and SDK Installer. You're going to want to install the SDK, which will come with tons of samples, documentation, everything you need. And then you're also going to want to install the samples, the DA62 sample. Now, once you have that installed, the default location for that install directory is going to be in your local disk C under Microsoft Flight Sim SDK. And like I said, you'll have that documentation in which you can open up your help file. And specifically, I would start on reading underneath samples, aircraft, asset creation, modeling practices, sim objects, aircraft configuration, and lastly, aircraft editor. These are the big ones inside the help function that I would recommend reading right away to get started. But then again, that's why you are here watching this video, so let's continue on. In the SDK, you'll also have this samples folder, which has various aircraft samples that you can go up through, as well as this DA62. Not sure why that did not go into the aircraft folder, but that's the way the cookie crumbles here. So we got the DA62, which is what we're mainly going to be using. It's the most updated aircraft SDK sample out there, and so that's what we're going to be using for our port over. So let's go ahead and get into it. So we go to dev mode here. We're going to start our new project. First things first, you want to start a new project folder, so click on the 3 dots here. I keep things simple. In my local disk C, I have my Microsoft Flight Sim SDK, as well as what I currently do, which is my custom aircraft. For this series, I've created a Microsoft Flight Sim Dev Series folder. So in here is where we're going to really start playing around. So here, I'm going to create a new folder, and I think we're going to name this aircraft Old Reliable. So we're going to call it Old Reliable Project. We're going to go ahead and click on that folder, select the folder, and then we're going to name the project once again to the Old Reliable Project. And as you can see, as I put spaces in here, it automatically hyphenates. That's just the way that the Microsoft Flight Simulator goes throughout its directory process, so I would not worry about that. And click OK. Now you should have this project editor pop up as well as an inspector. And if the inspector didn't pop up, you can always go to view and make sure your inspector pops up. Now the default company name, go ahead and put your name in there. I've put in Aerosaur, as you can see. And then from there, you're going to hit this little plus sign down here. This little add package will pop up, and you're going to want to add your sim object package. So we're going to call this old reliable sim object. And under type here, obviously this is not an art project, this is a sim object. Now sim objects is what delineates Microsoft Flight Simulator down to the aircraft level. So we'll get more into that here soon. Just hit create. Okay, after you've hit create, you go ahead, the company name and the package name are already filled out for you, which is great. For manufacturer, this is for aircraft, obviously, so I'm just going to put something simple, 3D base model. The title is Old Reliable, and the creator is Aerosaur. And then the content type here, we can go ahead and put aircraft. We don't have to worry about a thumbnail right now, obviously, and we will be adding marketplace data later on in the tutorial series, but not today. And that is all you need for step 1. So now that you got that figured out, go ahead and click this little blue arrow on your package line, which will drop to your sim object line, as you can see the green sim object. Go ahead and click that. You'll have some new information pop up in the inspector. And now we need to assign our asset directory and our output directory. So let's go ahead and assign our asset. We need to click the 3 dots. Make sure that you are in that brand new old reliable project folder or whatever you named it, and you're going to right click new folder, and you're going to call this package sources. Now inside package sources, you're going to create a new folder called sim objects. Make sure it's objects, not object. And then inside sim objects, you're going to create a new folder called airplanes. Inside airplanes, you're going to go create a new folder called your aircraft. So we're going to do the old reliable aircraft. And inside the aircraft folder, you're going to have very familiar folders. So you're going to have your model folder. You're going to have your texture folder. You're going to have your panel folder. And you're going to have your sound folder. Now also with Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, you're going to have a couple extra folders. So you're going to have your sound AI folder, and then also your checklist folder. Okay, and now that we have these sorted out, you have a very simple base, but we are not done yet. But for now, let's go ahead and go back to airplanes, click on that old reliable aircraft folder, and select that as your asset directory. Now down here, you're going to go ahead and type the same as the above, omit package sources. So you're just going to type in sim objects / airplanes / old space reliable space aircraft. Once you're done with that, go ahead and hit enter on the keyboard, which will validate that that is your output directory. And now we need to do a couple more things. So let's go ahead and open up File Explorer. This is why I recommend too, if you haven't put Microsoft Flight Simulator in Windows mode instead of full screen, so you can do this kind of stuff. Go ahead and do that. Once again, we're going to the Dev Series, Old Reliable Project, Package Sources, Sim Objects, Airplanes, Old Reliable Aircraft, and we have all these folder structures that we just created. Now we're going to bring up a second File Explorer and go into that Microsoft Flight Simulator SDK, the samples, into the DA62. In the DA62, we'll go once again into Package Sources, Sim Objects, Airplanes, DA62, Aircraft, and now we have all their files. And yes, we are going to still everything because it is the easiest way to get your aircraft into the game and then slowly start building upon that, changing things, modifying it, because if not, you're going to have some wild issues where maybe you put your model into the game for the first time and it just falls through the hangar floor and goes to space. You know, this kind of stuff happens because you don't have any contact points defined. And so if you have all these original template files from the SDK DA62, you'll set yourself up for success and be able to modify with little problems. So let's go ahead and copy the CFG files and the FLT files. That's all we need out of this main folder. Go ahead and copy it, paste it. Next, you're going to want to go into your texture folder, and all you really need out of this one is your thumbnail small, thumbnail JPEG, and your texture CFG. Then you're going to want to go into your sound AI, and we will dive deeper into sound later in the development series, but for now we are going to add this basic DA62 sound pack because I think we want just a little sound to make sure that we can hear some things as we are going through the animation process later in the series. So copy both the sound and the sound AI folders. Next we go into that panel. We're going to go ahead and copy the panel XML and the panel CFG. We'll delve deeper into that later in the series. And then we'll go into checklist, copy the checklist folder and paste that. And then last but not least, model. Okay, now model, we're not going to want to copy everything. We don't need everything. So we're going to copy the DA62, the DA62 interior, the DA62 interior LOD00, the DA62 LOD00, and the model CFG. So we're going to go ahead and copy that and paste. And the reason why we're only copying those files specifically is because in Blender we're going to start out with a single model. We're going to start out making sure that the exterior is modeled, the interior is modeled, and we're going to export that as a single model. We're not going to delineate LODs yet. That will come further down in the tutorial series. And we're just going to make sure that it can get into the game and start working. So we do not need all the extra LODs for now. And there's actually quite a bit of steps here that we're going to be doing in the model folder to make sure that that will be able to work with a single LOD path. So you can go ahead and move that other file explorer to the side. You don't need it. And let's go ahead and start by clicking on the model CFG. Now the way I do it and the way I recommend doing it is you're going to separate your exterior and interior later on when you have a more defined model and everything is working better. Pretty much when you start diving into the interior of your aircraft and really start getting switch animations going and gauges. So for now, we're going to go ahead and put a semicolon in front of interior, which means it will ignore this line in the CFG. And we're going to change the exterior name to normal. And by changing it to normal, it's telling the game to use this XML file as both the interior and exterior model for now. So we're going to make that quick little change, hit save up here. And if you don't have Notepad++, go ahead and use Notepad++. I know a lot of people use regular Notepad. There are other code editors out there which work great, but Notepad++ is extremely helpful, especially when you really start diving into XML files and compartmentalizing things. Okay, so now we got that done. Let's go ahead and jump into our DA62 XML file. And we need to get rid of all these LODs below 00. So just delete. And you have that set now. So you're good. Hit save. And then we'll jump into the interior one. Obviously we are ignoring this one like we defined in the CFG line, but we're going to set ourselves up for success and delete everything below the 00, because when we do start working with the interior file, we will have a 00, and then we will build upon that later on in the series with LOD delegation. So once you've done that, go ahead and hit save. And so now you should just have your interior, which is being ignored, all three of these files, and your LOD 00, which we will be using, and then the model, which is rewritten. At this point, your old reliable aircraft project folder is almost ready to go. So let's go ahead and jump into Blender. Now in Blender, I already opened this to make sure this was a good aircraft that is working, but we will start from fresh. Once you start a new project, you're going to have to delete your light, your cube, your camera, and your collection. There's no need for those. And you're going to import your 3D model of choice. But before you do that, we need to go make sure and edit here, preferences. We have a nifty little tool in our add-ons called Microsoft Flight Simulator Toolkit. If you don't have Microsoft Flight Simulator Toolkit installed, I'll go ahead and drop the link below. But to do it, to install it, I know there's some questions. People have not used Blender add-ons before. All you're going to do up here is hit install. You're going to go to that file that you've downloaded. In this case, I've put it in a series assets folder, and is toolkit.4 zip. And we're just going to click on the zip file and install add-on. And as you can see down here, we have this nice little blue notification down below that lets us know it's been installed. And then you're just going to hit check on the Microsoft Flight Simulator Toolkit to use it throughout the series. Now what this toolkit does is it allows us to have certain custom properties that we can import that the sim will read. So for example, let's go ahead and go to import our object. Go find our asset, our aircraft model we'll be using for this series. And it is way too big. So Microsoft Flight Simulator works on a 1 meter by 1 square rule. So if you zoom into Blender here, you notice that there is 1 square. This is 1 meter. So this is a Star Trek Enterprise sized aircraft. We do not want that. So the first thing we need to do is actually downscale this aircraft. So go ahead and click on the model, click on this little arrow over here, and then you're going to want to downscale this aircraft to 0.01 on both the X, Y, and Z. I put 0.1 here. Okay, now we got an aircraft that looks about appropriate in size, and obviously we can adjust this later down the line, but I think I'm going to leave it at the 10th size for now just to see how it looks into the game. So after that, we're going to want to change our rotation to 0 to make sure we are wheels up on the plane. And then another big important part up here, so if you go ahead and click on your Z axis, you're going to want the aircraft facing down. If it's facing down, it is the right orientation within the game. So in order to do that, let's go ahead to our Z axis, rotate the aircraft 90 degrees, and we are now facing down. If you're facing up, your aircraft will be backwards in the game. So a good rule of thumb, especially when it starts coming with UV unwrapping later in the future, is everything needs to be facing down. Okay, now that we got that, if we go to our X view, our side view here, we notice that this 000 point is what we have as aircraft center. Obviously this is not aircraft center, so we need to fix our aircraft center. In the SDK documentation, it explains that aircraft center needs to be at water level. So I would say that if this guy went into the water level would probably be around where the elevators are, and up just a little bit below the engines. This is where I'm going to be placing my center. And then if we go to our Z-axis, once again, we want to make sure that this red center line here is about center of the wings, which it is. And if you have a different model, like a jet per se, has some angled wings, you're going to be, or even a Boeing that has wings that kind of flare out, you're going to want to put this not center to the wing, but 1/3 of the wing. And if you look here in the documentation under modeling practices, for example, it will explain exactly how you want to be placing the center point at water level, and then down, or you're down 1/3 of the wings. So of course this varies per project and it gets way more complicated depending on the aircraft, but for here we are good to go. So like I was explaining, the Microsoft Flight Simulator Toolkit, if we go to materials here, has a bunch of additional functions. They have material modes in which we can add specifically windshield affecting, standard clear coat, and environmental occluders. We'll be diving deeper into these later in the series, but just so you know, this is just so you can get the model working and running right in the game. So you need to have that toolkit or you're not going to be doing anything with Microsoft development. Next, we're going to go ahead and go to export, go to the extended GLTF 2.0 for Microsoft Flight Simulator, which is also part of this toolkit, so you're going to need that toolkit. And let's go ahead and go to our C drive, where we put our dev series, our old reliable project, our package sources, sim objects, airplanes, old reliable aircraft into our model folder, and we're going to be clicking on this DA62LOD00. Next thing you want to do is you want to define this textures folder. So what I like to do, so that I don't have to do this every single time, is I'm going to go back into that folder, all the way into the old reliable, click on textures. Up here you'll have your whole directory source. Go ahead and copy that, and then in textures go ahead and paste that, Control V, and now you have delineated that is going to be your texture folder for the future. And if you go ahead and remember export settings now, it will always be dropping your textures into that folder so that you don't have to redo that every single time or manually drop your textures. Next, you want to go down. We're not going to be working with LODs today or an XML file because we'll be using the default DA62. We don't have to worry about checking any of these. Y is up. Yes, leave that as is. We're going to apply modifiers. We don't have to do that now, but we're going to want it to remember this for the future. So go ahead and apply the modifiers now. Animation we're not going to worry about, and extensions, just make sure that your Asobo extensions is checked. Once you got all that figured out, go ahead and hit export. Now it should take just a quick second here, as this is a very simple project. And just like that, it is done. So we can now go ahead and hit File, Save, and we're going to be wanting to save this today. And I'm going to name this Old Reliable. Okay, and now we can minus that and get back to the game. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to click on this blue project and click on Build Package. It is package time. Do you want to save the project before building? If not, modifications will be taken into account. Yes, you want to save. Okay, now for the first time in the series, you should see this console pop up. Now the console is very ominous and it has a lot of errors. However, these errors are per the entire game. So like you see here, you see stuff about the DA42, the Cessna 152, the Baron, the Savage. These are baseline errors that always come with every project. So you don't have to really worry about seeing all these red. What you're going to be focusing on is the red above these smaller model info loader errors. So let's go ahead and look at the white here, and it looks like we are missing our content info thumbnail, which is fine. We don't have a thumbnail yet, and we failed to spawn our lister for asset group contents. That is okay. We don't have to worry about that either. So we'll go ahead and move this to the side here. And then one more thing, it's kind of redundant, but it has to be done. At this point, we got to go to File, Open, and we have to reopen the project that we just built the package on. So if we go into that dev series, the old reliable project file, click Open. And now that that's reloaded, we should see our aircraft in the game. So if we go back here, go to our profile, let's go to our hangar, change our aircraft here. We should now have 23 aircraft instead of 22. So you are looking for that extra DA62. In our case, it's at the very front. It's as you can tell, it's a little bit different than the regular DA62. It has a bunch of nice wording in here. We're going to go ahead and click on that. And if we click on go back, we can see that our model is finally in the game. Now, there is quite a bit to do at this point as far as finishing the project out and making sure that it is named appropriately, because we do not want this named DA62 forever. So the first thing we're going to do is let's go ahead and bring our project editor back over and our inspector and get ourselves a nice snapshot so that we can always remember that that's what it is instead of the DA62. So we're going to go ahead and click on our project folder again. We're going to capture aircraft thumbnail, and we're going to go ahead and choose our asset folder. It doesn't matter where you put this exactly. So what it's going to do is it's going to snap a PNG, which is funny because a PNG is not supported for the thumbnail type. Only a JPEG is. So once it snaps that PNG, you're going to have to go into wherever you saved that file, and you're going to have to edit that with Paint or whatever you use. And unfortunately, once you have that thumbnail, you got to go to File, Save As, go back into your old reliable project, Package Sources, Sim Objects, Airplanes, all the way to Texture, change PNG, like I said, to JPEG, and then click on Thumbnail and click Save. And yes, you will be overwriting the original. So now you got your own custom thumbnail. You can save this PNG for later though, because you can start using it to make these custom sized ones. Like this has to be by 412 by 170. And when you actually make marketplace data on this thing, you're going to have even more pictures that you got to deal with. So I would just leave that to the side for now. And then obviously as we progress the model and make the model better, you're going to be wanting to update this thumbnail quite often if you want. Like I said, it's a convenience. So we just don't want this DA62 in the background to be showing up. I want the old reliable to be showing up. Now that you got that done, click on your project and rebuild the package. And that is due to the fact that we just updated the thumbnail. So anytime you do something in the package sources, you update it. Now, okay, it rebuilt. You're going to see that console pop up once again with all the errors. You can just ignore that for now. And if we go ahead and click on something, go back to all, and we scroll down the line, we should see our brand new thumbnail, and we do. And here we go. We got our first aircraft imported into the game. And like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video today. We'll be diving deeper into Aircraft Editor, where we can slowly rename it so it's not going to be this manufacturer aircraft UI model. And we will dive deeper into CFG editing as well as the flight model editing. So we are slowly going to be taking this DA62 project, in which we only took some things from it, and turning it into our own. So I hope you guys like this tutorial. Hope it helps. Hope you guys can follow along and we can start getting our community creations knocked out. And thank you once again for all your support, especially with my latest project with my discus glider. It's been a quite surprise from the community to receive all the comments and the thanks for what I've done. So I will go to continue to steamroll that with this tutorial series, and hopefully you guys will learn something new. Catch you all later. Thank you.